Take it up. Down, 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 down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. Take it up. Down, 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 down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. Take it up. Down, down, down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. Take it up. Down, down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. Take it up.
Hi, Rory.
Down.
Hi, Isabella.
How are you? Oh, don't be formal. You can go Dawn with me.
I like it like that. Take it up. Down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. Take it up. Down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. Take it up. Down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. Take it up. Down. Wiggle. Turn around. Alright. I like it like that. is right. Sometimes I can't think. I need to find a space where I can dream of another life. Things don't seem so bad. I feel alive. When I'm in this place, the world is right.
Hi, everyone. We will definitely start promptly at 6 p.m. Take a look at some of the current trends happening right now on the runways. If you have any questions at all, put them in the chat. We're going to answer them in order of them being received. Hi, Giovanni. How are you? You're muted. You're going to have to unmute yourself.
Good. Thank you, Isabel.
Ciao. Hi, Giovanni.
Hi, Rory.
So, I didn't tell you guys a funny story this morning. So, do you know that Rory was my mentor? And when I was 11 years old, she brought me to fashion school for the first time. And I ended up having a college day, we'll call it. And I didn't go to my junior high school. And I happened to be best friends with Rory's sister. And we, she brought me to New York City, and she told me before we got on the train, you got to keep the pace. That's what she told me. You got to keep the pace.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to keep the pace. I'm going to keep the pace. And we got out in, I think, where did we transfer? Times Square, Rory? Oh, you're on mute too.
14th Street. We transferred at 14th Street Union Square to catch the 7.
And I felt that passion, that New York City, like, and I was like, oh my God, because I was from Brooklyn. And I was like, this is where I need to be. And I literally, I went home that day. I told my parents, I'm going to Manhattan, right?
It was all my fault. Yeah.
Yes, thank God. Really, it was intense. I'm going to just be admitting people. Welcome, everyone. We're going to promptly start at 6 p.m. But if you have any questions that you're even thinking about, maybe you feel too shy to ask, don't worry about it. Put them in the chat. And as they come up, we will answer them in the order they're received. Hi, Dominique. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Rory, Giovanni, I want you to meet Dominique. She's our student advisor.
Hi.
Hi, Dominique. Good
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
She's been looking at your faces and reading all about you. So it's super exciting that we're all going to get together. Dominique, I was just telling Rory and Giovanni, that's how Rory introduced me to fashion. I would actually say that Rory was my fashion mentor. When I was going to grad school, I literally wrote about her in my, in my application to grad school for global fashion management. And Rory taught me when I was 11 years old. When I got off the train, she said, get off the train. Here I was, this little chubby girl from Brooklyn. I was wearing the same outfit every day because I liked it. And it was my uniform, okay? And she was like, keep the pace, keep the pace.
Oh my God.
And Yeah, 11 years old. I was like, New York City, fashion. This is where I need to be.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
that story.
we didn't wear sweatpants or sneakers.
No.
You had to be dressed to the hilt to go into New York City.
Yeah,
And you still do. It's all about the shoes. It's all about the shoes.
Yeah, when I was in Italy, like 2002 or 2001, no, 2001, that's when like sportswear and sneakers started becoming popular in Europe. It wasn't even happening. Hi, Harry, how are you?
Hi, Isabel. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
This is
Hi,
Rory and
Colombo.
Giovanni.
How are you?
You know Harry, right?
Huh?
Hi, Harry. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Colombo. What are you doing with your beautiful course and textile?
We're getting ready to teach it again in September.
All right.
So we have a really big global community. And Harry's part of that global community. So I know a lot of you that are joining in now, if you are in another country, you can still take NYSD classes online. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email us. It's our first name dot last name at nysd.edu. And Dominique, you're going to put your email in the chat. My email's in the chat at the beginning. And guys, just to get started, any questions you might have, please feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to answer them in order of them being received. We'll just give it 2 more minutes because I know some people are trickling in and they're just finishing work. So just another minute or 2 and we will get moving and grooving.
Turn around.
Oh, did I change our? All right. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Textile Trends for Fashion Designers and Students. I will keep admitting people as we go through, so don't mind me if I look distracted and you see 2 of me floating around. But really what I want to do is I want to introduce you to our 2 textile experts. This evening, actually, I'm trying to think of what time of day it is, depending on where you are. This evening we have 2 textile experts. Giovanni Palumbo, who is with us today, and he's also our textile professor here at NYSD, and Rory Falacaro. I just want to give them a little introduction and then let them talk a little bit more about their careers and their journeys as designers and textile specialists. Rory is an international textile consultant and entrepreneur. She has been the textile liaison with huge companies such as Trend Union and Karen Muller, Design Options, Just Prints, and an entrepreneur with her own design company, Pina Pina. Her technical and merchandising development has been used in the likes of famous textile fairs such as Premier Vision, Surtex, Magic. And I just want Rory to tell you a little bit more about herself before I go ahead and introduce you to Giovanni.
Hi, everyone. Again, you see who I am. It's Rory Falacaro. I am a native New Yorker who's actually been living up in New England for the past almost 13 years. New Hampshire has become my home, but I will always be a native New Yorker. That will always be my song. It's my theme, and it's all about fashion. As is Isabella, I'm a fashion graduate, enjoy the passion of New York City and the hustle and bustle. If anyone was on earlier to hear about Miss Isabella and her introduction to New York City. But back when I was in high school, I never thought that I saved every magazine from Vogue to Elle to Glamour. I remember when In Magazine was a brand new publication. I don't even think Fairchild was what it was back then. But I cut out advertisements, pages of things I just liked, articles that were interesting to me. And never in a million years did I think I was creating my fashion swipe library, which was so important and critical to the beginning of my textile design business, Pina Pina. Our office wasn't far from where the school is. We were at the Vogue building at 990 6th Avenue. And back in the day, computers really weren't where it's at. We didn't have computers. It was about cold calling and networking, and there were no emails. It was a written letter, and very different as today. Back when I started CAD machines, everybody's familiar with a CAD machine now, right? It's that CAD machine that was just taking off. But now with the technology, the opportunities for you are endless. I say endless. If you have that relentless passion and the drive for fashion and textiles, and just visualizing, everything will get you there. If you're anything like me at all and you spend time just looking at fabrics and you just want to touch, when you walk into those big department stores and you're looking at patterns and textiles and you're in different stores, big box, small box, specialty, maybe you just buy things because you like it. Maybe it doesn't even fit you and it's just an inspiration. That textile designer and that business entrepreneurship is probably in the bottom of your heart. There are so many textile design jobs in the industry, and we're going to talk about them today. It's going to help you, the creative thinker, understand what fashion is and how to be experimental with all the different techniques and technology that's out there. So just studying textiles and fashion design at NYSD will help you get you there. So I'm going to pass it over to Giovanni because it was so wonderful to meet him and learn all about his experience.
So just a small intro. Giovanni is designing menswear, soft wovens, intimates for Urban Outfitters, now for Madewell. He does pre-development, trends, sourcing, strike-offs, and also manages to teach and give back at NYSD. So we're so lucky to have you here, Giovanni. Tell us a little bit more about your experience as a designer.
Oh, thank you. So my background is in fabric research and development. I did that for wovens, for Urban Outfitters company, for kind of like all of their divisions. I also have a background in product development and production, kind of really seeing garments from the designer's vision to what you see in the store, working together as a team very closely with designers. I also have a background in color, kind of like reviewing lab dips in bulk, print strike-offs to kind of see how the techniques executed and colors executed. And the one thing I would add is for my fabric research and development background, I've also worked on the fabric supplier side, which is kind of like, kind of like selling fabrics to brands. So I've been kind of on both sides. I understand kind of like the brand perspective when we're using fabrics, as well as kind of like the fabric producer supplier who wants you to order the fabric.
Wow. So, I mean, there's so many facets, and I feel like both of you have been on both sides, either the entrepreneurial side, the selling side, the designing side, the business side. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today, and how the trends really focus us on creating the patterns of the now, and how we see that and how we pull that from these large companies who are researching globally and have people all around the world. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and start. Our next slide is we're gonna talk a little bit about textiles, the careers in textiles, and fashion and trend forecasting. And Rory, I know that you've been working with those agencies for so long, and starting with Trend Union, what kind of various careers are they in textiles? I know a lot of our students, especially our foundational students that are with us tonight, might not have that full background, but I know we have the gamut here. We have novices.
Understanding, textile, what is it? So what is a textile? If you look around just in the room that you're in right now, there are textiles everywhere. If you're sitting on a chair, that has a fabric to it. There's a textile. Your backpacks, not just your clothing, it's your curtains, it's the rugs. We're living in a pandemic. Textiles are in hospitals. It's about the fabrications of what's happening and how it protects people. It's not just that mesh that could save somebody's heart, and it's that stent that goes in. That's a textile. So no matter what your interests are, keeping an open mind to careers in textiles could be endless, as long as you're open to different things and different change and how it can inspire different people. But, you know, when you're looking at careers, you could be in a textile area, fashion consultants, fashion designers. I love merchandising. It's those fashion merchandisers, fashion modeling, there's jewelry, makeup, pattern making, shoe design. There's textiles everywhere. So really understanding that, you know, with a focus is where it's at, and the careers are endless.
And Giovanni, how do we take that and how do we make it a global focus? How do we incorporate our textile knowledge with trends?
So the thing I would add here, because I think later in the presentation we go into more detail on specific career options, but an understanding of kind of like fabric and trends is fundamental for almost every role in the industry. Though how much your work depends on it will depend on the specific role. So obviously trend forecasting completely, a designer very heavily, a merchant, they still do need to understand fabric because, for example, the fiber composition affects the duty, which affects your costing. That also would affect somebody that works in production. So you can kind of see how even like the degree to which you need to understand a trend and fabric will vary by specific role, but they do kind of touch across the industry broadly. The other thing I would add kind of quickly is trend. In this presentation, we'll be talking about it in a very grand sense, but as designers, you interpret the trends for your brand and your customers specifically. So, for example, the crop trend is really huge and is going to continue into next year. But if you have an older customer, then that might actually just mean the silhouette getting shorter. So you really have to kind of like do it both for your customer, for your brand. So it doesn't exist purely in this theoretical sense that you might get if you were like just looking on a trend forecasting website.
Got it. So you have to kind of use it to target to your audience specifically.
Absolutely.
So Rory, tell us a little bit more about the career skill sets for someone in textiles.
So, you know, when you're thinking about your background, you know, whether it's, you know, something, you know, art and design or surface design, you need to have that solid foundation. So really understanding what you learn and having great knowledge of it to apply what you know, understanding color and the color wheel and the composition, understanding how they style textiles, because it all kind of comes together. Textiles, you know, the designer needs to know how things wear. How is it going to fit? Right now, if you're into the 3D generation, it's really grasping hold of how it falls and how it hangs. And most importantly, in today's day and age, understanding sustainability and having a real good foundation in the basis of what a textile is and how long it's going to last. Wash and wear. Is it fast fashion? What kind of fashion are you focusing on? And really having a good understanding of that. There's lots of textile and related coursework at NYSD. There's FDF and FDC, which focuses on the elements and principles of fashion, and a class close to my heart, that color theory and textiles for fashion design. Those are things that you could really, you know, take advantage of at school to get that foundation, so you really get the basis of creating your own portfolios. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit too.
Yeah, and Giovanni, I know you teach the textile class. If you want to speak a little bit to that class, and its relevance to being a designer, and some of the other classes that we do have at NYSD. Sorry, I pushed the slide too quickly. Please feel free to just jump in.
Definitely. I am biased, I admit that, but I do very much consider kind of like the fabric to be the most important part of the garment. It's the #1 determiner for the cost of the garment, the #1 determiner for what country you source the garment from. Usually you kind of want it to match the same company that's producing the fabric or just kind of be aligned. It would be kind of, it could just be like very challenging to like cut and sew a garment in Africa with fabric from India. It also is the #1 determiner in how you care for the garment and how long the garment lasts. So in the industry we call, actually in the industry the term quality is a synonym for fabric, because they are one and the same. So if you make a garment in a very lightweight, gauzy, loose weave, that is what gives it its unique character. And that's also what makes it so that you have to use it in a very loose fitting silhouette, because it will tear in a tight. So basically, even though some of these concepts can get a little technical, kind of like you can see from that example I just gave, it really, like, the technical informs every aspect of the creative side. Fabric is also, to close out, the thing that most determines kind of the lead time for the garment and how fast you can get it to market. So a brand like Zara, for example, they don't really have a lot of jacquards. They don't have a lot of yarn dyes. There's very, very little linen. If they have it, it's in a more basic fabrication, because they need that fast lead time.
Yeah, I mean, so fabric basically really determines the drape, the hand, the feel of your garment, these key things that, and basically the other than your work that you're putting into it, it's really the biggest cost that goes into the garment is your fabrication. And so learning all of these different aspects and touching on them, especially in our foundational program, where you'll learn how to illustrate certain fabrications, how to digitally design the wovens, how to inject them into various different prints into your silhouettes. These are all huge, important things that you're going to use throughout your entire career. I mean, in the color theory class, you're going to be creating these color mood boards that you're going to do for every client that you have from now forevermore. And I know that we're going to see a lot more of it in our in this presentation, but especially the textiles for fashion design. When you think about it, our clothing is made of textiles. And like what Rory said, that we don't even think about how vast textiles are. We get into our car, it's textile. We get on the plane, it's textile. We have to have, God forbid, a family member has a heart condition. We're putting textiles within our bodies now. So, and now with PPE and protective wear, I just think that textiles, the industry has grown exponentially, and really understanding the functionality of these fabrics and the characteristics as what Giovanni was speaking to. And I know he could speak a little bit more to this, that, it's super important understanding, knowing, and maybe you could talk about your strike offs, Giovanni, and how when they're just starting off and are doing a small run as a designer, how important it is to really understand the dye techniques and, do they need sewing? For mock-ups, how do they create these presentations? Like, will they get this kind of training here? I think that that's really what people are looking to know.
Definitely. So just kind of talk a bit about, so I feel like I'm about to contradict myself in a way, because working in the industry, I do meet lots of CAD designers is usually what we call them. It's kind of like a role for someone who designs mostly like print and pattern and yarn dye patterns for going on fabrics for a brand, but they might not necessarily create like a new fabric in that sense of like, oh, I think if we use this type of yarn, etc. So they do have jobs. So I can't say that this is necessary to have a job, but it definitely, when you're basically at my current role with Mabel, I had to say like, I love the CAD designers, but don't let them look at my strike-offs because they didn't have the technical background needed to really properly review them. They were forgetting things like checking the hand feel. They were forgetting things like checking the overall layout. You obviously have to check the color as well. And you kind of have to check the technique, which we do go over in the textile class, because that does affect the price. And it also affects kind of just what you can do. For example, if you're printing darker colors on a lighter ground, absolutely fine. When you do it the other way around, when you want the ground to be darker than the colors you're printing on top, that's when you need to start talking about technique. Are we going to kind of, you could discharge it with bleach. I don't want to get into too much detail. You could print on the surface with a pigment after you dye the fabric, but that's kind of why this background is important.
Yeah, so you really want to know, you want to understand how color adheres to the fabric. So if you want to create a screen print, you need to have this basic understanding and this basic knowledge so that you can achieve the designs that you want and really understand the right fabrics to use for what you want to create. And just like what Giovanni had spoken to earlier, like if you want a certain fabric for your market, it might be a little bit different. Like we definitely have certain trends that are happening right now. And he used the example as the crop trend, right? But if you have to use your knowledge and your textile background along with the trends to design and keep you constantly relevant in an industry that, you know, takes no prisoners. And Rory told me that when I was 11 years old. And, I'm sticking to it because you taught me well.
You know, I'm thinking about, what Giovanni had said, and understanding the fabrics and the principles, and it's those properties, but it's those characteristics and everything about it. When you have the basis, I remember I wasn't the textile design artist. I was the person who was selling the artwork. Anything, all original artwork, one of a kinds or collections, as well as antique swatches and documents. And when you're trying to sell to the manufacturer or the converter, or even the designers, you really have to understand and start asking the questions and knowing, so where will you be printing? Because they might not want to buy the pattern because they're afraid they might not be able to print it. And then when you start to have that knowledge and you keep talking to more people and understanding the business, well, where are you printing or what are you printing on? And then you might have a different collection where the color might retain better based on the fabrics that you're needing to utilize. Again, and Giovanni said it earlier, it's about your budget when you're trying to manage where are you printing, what are you printing on, and what's the where and what's the cost, and who are you selling to?
Yeah, and I think that the more that they know and the broader your knowledge is, and I know that, Rory, we were talking about this earlier, that you don't have to know how to sew, but the knowledge of sewing, this basic foundational knowledge that we really push all throughout our programming is super crucial, because really even understanding Harry, for example, he's a phenomenal abstract artist. And when we look at the textiles that are happening right now, I could see your artwork being a textile. So having that CAD knowledge, or that digital illustration knowledge that we call it here at NYSD, is really going to help you create a step and repeat, create a pattern, create a portfolio. And I know Rory wants to talk a little bit more of these career must-haves, because it is super imperative to have a portfolio that really shows what you can do across all of the segments. And then as you move into your certification and the professional program, you could really hone in on what brings you the most joy. And maybe it's going to be textiles, or maybe it's going to be selling textiles, or any of these other genres that are within the fashion industry and are still part of design.
Yep. When you're looking for that first job and really connecting, certain career must-haves, that strong portfolio. You want to master that digital so you're out there, but having a very strong physical portfolio is important. That's your key. I still have mine 25 years later. It's just, I look back and say, wow, we're going to talk about what was then and how it evolves. But, just maintaining that and keeping it up to date. You yourself are a work in progress. So continually updating and keeping with the times, keeping that artistic flair. If you're good at the computer aided, designing skills, focus on that. It's that color eye, texture, fashion, that attention to detail. It's critical. Take a business course. Understand when you're marketing yourself. When you're understanding how to brand, be consistent. And it's that attention to detail, even of how your portfolio opens, how it's visual to the eye. Ask people, show it, get opinions, get feedback, connect with peers.
And you're professionals here. I mean, we start this with elements and principles of fashion. We're really honing your skills and developing your portfolio from the beginning, from the onset. What we want to do is for every single coursework you take, develop that portfolio piece. Cleanliness, clarity, consistency. These are the things that we want to see. Forget about just diamonds. Your portfolio is your diamond in the rough. And like Rory said, every single day, every single class, every single assignment is another portfolio piece that's going to expand your portfolio. And you could see, and I think it's super crucial. I used to be like, oh my God, I was such a perfectionist. I hated things and I would throw them away. But now when I see some of the things that I did save and I see the evolution of it, it just makes a difference. I urge you to save all of your pieces all along, because these trends, as we're going to discuss and as we move on, these trends are going to come back and you're going to see them again and again in your lifetime. Even though, it sounds like, I feel like I'm like my mother when I say, oh my God, I used to wear that. It's happening now. Yeah. Scary, but true.
And do you know what you could, when you resell it, everything's out there online, it's creating your own library, creating your own fashion, holding on to it. It's the care that you have for it. I have clothing that I'm wearing since I was in school. It's your care, and I spent a lot of money on it, whether it's a handbag or a certain pair of shoes or just a garment or a jacket. It's that inspiration, and then people say, wow, I'm like, yeah, it's vintage now, but it's worth a lot, and you won't believe how much you can get for it, when you decide you might want to resell it, or you're just like me and you like to collect things.
Yeah, but I read a meme and it said, talking about the 90s now is like our parents talking about the 60s, which is like, it blew my mind. And I'm like, holy, beep. Okay, Giovanni, tell us more about these related fashion careers, because I know not everyone wants to be a fashion designer, and there's so many other aspects of our industry that, they might not have knowledge of.
I would love that, because I think there's many different careers in this industry that you can pursue. And I think that's one of the things that makes it exciting, especially if you love fashion. You can kind of like myself. So I study textiles. Now I work in garment product development. That's very related, but it's not the exact same role. So there's, and I've also done colors as well. Coming from a fabric background. So there's definitely related things. Obviously, there's fashion designers, merchandisers, and there's even kind of merchandisers who are almost kind of more selling to brands, selling wholesales, that more sales side of it. Obviously, there's models, stylists, jewelry designers, artists, pattern makers. And a more common role in the industry is technical designer, which is kind of working together with the design team as well as overseas factories to kind of make sure that fit is right. If you're very detail oriented and you love like the construction side, that's a great role. We talked previously about CAD design and trend forecasters. So there's definitely kind of like all different, there's fabric research and development as well. I'm trying to think. Oh, there's colorist is another role. That's kind of like where you're checking colors for brands, and that's very closely tied to the fabric information in the fabric class. So there's all different kind of roles you can go into. And a lot of people do start with design backgrounds, including my current boss. And then you can stay in design. There's also opportunities to branch into other areas as well, which is really exciting.
So, okay, so where are these jobs, Rory? Like, who can help? Where are these jobs? Where do we find them? How do we direct our students?
Keeping that open mind, you know, be out there. You know, it could be that large retailer. I remember when I first wanted to look for a job in the city, I applied at Macy's Herald Square. It was a seasonal position. I was devastated because I did not get the job. How do you not hire me? Are you kidding me? I'm all about New York and fashion. Never would I have imagined 10 years later that I'm working there. So it's working with the designers in their MMG department, because it's selling textile designs to their private label. And from there, you know, things just start to evolve. So where are those little, it's not working, you know, and I love retail. I also worked in the big box selling. I was on the floor. And when Dana Buckman or Liz Claiborne or, you know, any of the entrepreneurs, like the business, they're here, they're really on our floor. Then I was selling them textile designs. You know, when you're working and selling, you're like, oh my goodness, Liz Claiborne is really here. Like, she's on our floor, whether it's selling or selling them textile designs. So it's starting with understanding. It's those big retailers or small specialty, the Gap, they do their own research. Do you know how many yarn dyes and swatches and antique swatches you sell for inspiration? Ralph Lauren is a humongous business when they're looking for reference material, antique swatches and documents, artwork. Diane von Furstenberg, when she walks into a room, she takes it over. So the names and the companies, it's just being open-minded to what you're needing to get into that market. Clothing manufacturers, you know, furniture, small retailers, even starting small. How many of you might like to freelance? You know what, you like that flexibility. You don't want to stick to I'm not that person who wants, I like to do my thing. Freelancing could also lead to self-employment. There's contract jobs too out there. So keeping an open mind to that type of business. And then again, knowing the basics and knowing where to look and start. And there's different places, you know, like the Textile Society of America. There's lots of the International Textile and Apparel Association. Lots of different information out there, where to find jobs. And it's about networking and just connecting with people, because it's being in that right spot. I swore when I didn't want to be a buyer and I didn't want to work in the mall. And I had a fabulous career in retail, from textile sales. I visited Premier Vision 6 times throughout my career for both seasons, spring and fall. You know, being at Trend Union when they just started, and walking into the atelier in Paris and just seeing the inspiration, not speaking a word of any language that people were speaking during, you know, Premier Vision and Trend Union weeks when you're out there shopping the market, but connecting and just networking, it's where you need to be.
So I will make a list of all of these different associations, and I will definitely email them to everybody in attendance today, just to keep you posted. So I want to tap, before we get really far into the trends, I just want to tap a little bit more on the importance of portfolio. And Giovanni, if you want to run with that, that would be great.
Definitely. So with portfolios, you obviously want to showcase your strong points as well as your kind of versatility. So that can kind of pull it in 2 different directions, kind of like what you're best at, but then also everything you can do. You never want to leave your portfolio with an employer because actually it kind of relates to what Rory was saying about like the antique swatches. Like, one of the few areas of our industry that has copyrights is kind of like print and pattern within like the past, I think within like copyright laws, which I guess is like around 100 years. Everything else is outside of copyright laws, so any ideas can be knocked off, which is an actual industry term. So, you know, people do knock each other off. So you definitely want to keep an eye on your portfolio. One thing I would also say is, you know, where COVID is happening now, and it really has revolutionized so much of the industry, I would say everyone here, and myself included, I have to remind myself of this, we should be thinking of it kind of as just design, not even as digital design anymore. Ever since COVID, when a lot of offices closed, it's all just design. So you might approve something via photo, you might send CADs, etc. You might include a photo in your portfolio of something that you did design in Illustrator. So it's all kind of just design, and you kind of just want to have the different media integrated. If you're an amazing hand sketcher, then you should still show that. I work at Urban Outfitters where they still actually do hand sketching, believe it or not. So you do want to highlight your strengths, but definitely think of it as just design. In general, I know that New York School of Design has the course in Browseware, which many companies are using now.
Yeah, I mean, it's super imperative. And we had one of these free webinars about Browseware just a few months ago and 3D design, and it has morphed the industry. It's just completely changed. And you have to consistently, if you want to be in fashion and you want to stay relevant, you've got to keep the pace. Like Rory said, you got to keep the pace.
Keep the pace.
And the pace is 3D, people. If you don't know it, you got to know it. So you got to start now. And it starts with our digital design course. And one of the things that really stood out to me with Kelsey, and she's the head designer at PVH, and she's also our Browseware 3D professor here at NYSD. Kelsey had said, understanding Illustrator is like an artist having a pencil. Like, it's a must. So digital design, we start in our foundational courses, we continue them in certification, and then we move into 3D because that's how important it is right now. And it just, your portfolio will grow exponentially with 3D design. I can't express to you enough the difference that you can actually enter in. And Rory, I don't know how into 3D that you're in. I know we talked about it a little bit at I don't know if it was Florence or Southern New Hampshire. And we, you know, using 3D in your portfolio, you can actually enter your fabrications so that it drapes correctly. It fits your avatar correctly. I mean, this is leaps and bounds of where we were at just a year ago. And it's like, right now we're in this little period of time, and again, Kelsey equated it to like the 90s and the information superhighway when the internet was just coming out, and we were starting, you know, right now it's the same thing. It's like a big bust that it's just starting, and we're just seeing where we could go with 3D. It's going to continue, and AI and all of this stuff is just going to continue, and it's shaping our industry, and the fashion industry is changing for the first time since Christian Dior and the new look. Like
the new, you took the words out of my mouth. It's fashion is an evolution, and right now we are the crossroads of it. We are creating the history that the textbooks are going to show later on. And you know, like Giovanni said, you know, it's about having a strong portfolio, branding yourself, being consistent, being strong. Focus on your strengths. Don't worry about your opportunities. As Isabella knows, I am not the technical person. I have another part-time job, and they were just laughing. Oh, you definitely are not the technical. No, I have the creative flair in the mind. So using your strengths, I can sell anything. I understand it. You have to get an understanding and the basis and that buy-in. And when you connect with someone, you find out what connects, you sell yourself and you sell your strengths, and then you partner with others and learn, have an understanding. When I was selling textile designs, like he said, do not, and back then it was only about worrying about somebody taking a picture of it. Then it was the CAD machine takeover. Oh, that can't disappear from me at all. And licensing, I had to sign off. I sold one design to Calvin Klein, and it was an exclusive. They don't care if I sell it. They're using it for something else. They'd either buy the entire collection of the original artwork, or I'd have to sign a license that I wouldn't sell it to any of the competition. So if I was selling it to Calvin Klein for their apparel division, but I was going to take that artwork and sell it in California to a swimwear manufacturer, they didn't care because it was a different industry. So really just knowing who your market is, and really when you create your portfolio, branding and being smart. Don't just let your stuff out there. You know, everything is digital, and if you've got a great idea, license it. So I could stress, I must stress it. Watermark. Thank you, Dawn. And that's what teams do. There's the language.
Yeah, that's super important as well, because as you brand yourself and you go across all of your channels, because it's not just about the physical presence anymore. We understand now that it's also social media. Your web is crucial. Your internet is crucial. All of these things, and there should be a consistency across all of your different platforms. And whether you're selling on them now or not, you're still selling yourself as a student. And you know, we have people just next week is Fashion Week. So we have students creating their portfolios, and they're like, their resumes, they don't have a resume yet because but you start right now. This is when you start. You have the opportunity to be anything you want, and now's your time to brand yourself. And across all these different channels that are free, or $20 a month for a website or social media, really try to expand your horizons. So, one of the most important things that we've been talking about, we've tapped on over and over again, and we're still going to get to our massive trends for 2021, 2022. But we want to talk about textile fairs, because I think it really incorporates what both Giovanni and Rory are talking about in the networking aspect and really understanding the industry. And Giovanni, can you tell us a little bit more about like Premier Vision and Magic, if those that are attending tonight haven't been?
Definitely. I've been to the New York ones. And I think Rory can actually potentially speak a little bit better because she has so much experience with these fairs. But I'm happy to give. So it's definitely the world's leading fabric fair, usually held in Paris. And because of COVID, it's partially online now. So amazing opportunity for all of us to attend. And actually, as a student, you can get into a lot of these things for free, and kind of it's almost easier for you than like someone in the industry, and you might even have more time than someone in the industry because designers are pretty busy, to put it mildly. So now could be an amazing time to go. There's also one in New York to make that kind of like more accessible as well. And then some other really important trade fairs are Magic in, I believe it's, I'm totally blanking, like the gambling city.
Yeah.
In Vegas, yes.
In Vegas, thank you.
Yes. Magic started off in Vegas as the menswear show, and it has expanded, and it's actually one of the premier places to start networking, whether you're just sourcing or whether you're there to buy. So Magic is just a great experience. I know when I was selling and selling my textile designs, I knew I needed to get into the menswear market, and that's the first place we thought of to go. So it's a great experience. But not all of us can get over to Vegas. But again, a lot of these are online now. And if you're a student, they are free. Isabella does have a list of the fabric fairs that you can attend to as a student, and registering just for inspiration and sourcing to know what's happening and what's going forward. Premier Vision, if you've been to the Javits Center, take it times 10. Parc de Exposition is overwhelming. It's more than a day. It could be more than a week. Got to be very focused when you go there, but it's absolutely incredible. So if you can experience it and register online, it's just that inspiration. And follow it. You could just follow it and see what's happening as far as trends and making connections in the industry. Another good one in New York City is Surtex. Again, the only way I was able to get into the cosmetics industry when I was selling designs was exhibiting at Surtex, because it's very similar to a Prima Vision or a Magic, but it has different venues of different clientele. So in order to get in, Kleenex, tissues, I saw textile designs. That little print on the box, that's artwork. That's a textile. So it is the place to be. It's right there in the Javits Center, and it usually coincides with the stationery fair. So it's just good networking to get out there, understanding wall coverings, patterns, accessories, you name it, you could find it at Surtex, which is another great opportunity if you could take advantage of it, or view it online or follow their website.
Yeah, and I will bring that whole list. And remember that just because you're not necessarily selling or even sourcing at this point in your careers or in your education, just going there and seeing how other people are displaying their artwork and their portfolios and seeing the trends and seeing what's hot is an experience in and of itself, and worth it.
It's about keeping your skills sharp. You know, you're marketing yourself and you're shopping the competition, you know, whether in the future, if fashion is your career or a different aspect of textiles, it's shopping the market and knowing who your competition is. No matter what industry you go into, whatever job you go into, even if you're a business major and Wall Street, what's your competition doing? So you want to keep yourself sharp. When you're following the trends, follow the websites. Women's Wear Daily, WGSN, you name it, they're out there, and keeping up with technology. You might not be the master of it. Look, I'm not, but understanding it and being able to talk to it and just, being a part of a conversation when it's happening is key.
Yeah. So all of these things that we talked about, Premier Vision, Magic, Surtex, whether they're, you might be in Europe and it might be convenient for you to go to one of these. So it really depends on where you are. We do have a global community, but social media is one of the biggest ways that you can actually network, get out there and see what's happening. And we just talked a little bit about Danielle, and if Rory, if you just want to say a minute or two on her, but just because she's so super cool, and it's what you guys can be doing now as students and as early fashion designers, getting yourself out there on social is super relevant and super important.
Talking what you know best, you're the contact expert of what you're familiar with. And when you're trying to sell your ideas, your thoughts, your patterns, something as simple as what we wore, what, when? Oh my God, if I could have just, you think about it, why didn't I do that? Starting with a blog, and now she has like 2.7 billion followers. She had a line in Macy's through COVID, and you name it. And she's just a native New Yorker who started a blog
and went to fashion school. Mm-hmm.
Went to fashion school. And that's what she wanted to do. One thing I must say, social media, but on LinkedIn, it's that professionalism, and that's the connection. Start with where you're at. I also teach a different class, and it's about, professional communication and career planning and branding yourself, and, having a strong resume and being able to write a cover letter, but connecting on LinkedIn in a professional manner and using your network. Your peers in your class, you don't know where anyone's going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I've known Isabella since she was probably in like the 3rd grade, and we didn't speak, but when the opportunity is there, oh my God, Rory knows textiles, and she gave me a call. Mm-hmm. I was teaching a class and I needed someone who knows about 3D technology, and I have, you start networking. So you never know where your peers are.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to start.
So there's some just opportunities for us to hone our skills and really see what's happening now. So what are all these trend forecasters Giovanni? Like what are they basing it on? Is it the same thing that we're basing it on? Like what came first?
So I don't want to be controversial, but so it's very fascinating. Like trend forecasters base their predictions on many things. I'm part of the school of thought that it is bi-directional. So that trend forecasters are kind of like looking at things in museums, galleries, what people are wearing on the streets in places like Brooklyn, what teenagers are doing on their free time, what artists are coming up with, like really synthesizing all of this. But I'm also part of the school of thought that kind of like, because they are such a small group, that they do kind of create trends themselves, because all of us are going to Premiere Vision and kind of like working from their color forecast, which has already been dyed up, working together with the fiber producers almost 5 years in advance. And you will notice, I remember one time I was working for Madewell and I was shopping at Urban Outfitters and I saw a Sherpa jacket in like the almost exact same type of cumin color. And then part of it's like, well, we are kind of working from this forecast together. So I do see it as kind of like bi-directional. They're kind of like reading the culture. They always keep macro trends in mind, things like sustainability or kind of like the digital influence that keep going season after season for like up to a full decade or plus. But once again, I do feel like they kind of create trends, even if that's not exactly their intent.
Yeah, and I love the bi-directional for trends. Like I'm totally using that, Giovanni. That's amazing. It's so true, because I mean, there's huge fashion houses are using these trend forecasters that we're going to discuss more about, but at the same time, it is bi-directional in the sense that, you know, sometimes the trends are trickling up from the street and sometimes they're being dictated by, you know, what fibers we dyed maybe 2 to 5 years ago at this point, you know? So it's incredible how it could go both ways, and having this understanding and this knowledge. And I know that early on you worked with Trend Union, Rory, and I thought that this was really, really relevant for them to understand, you know, looking at and researching archives in order to dictate the trends. And even big houses like Trend Unions do this.
Yeah, I represented Karen Muller for 6 years here in the States, in New York. Karen Muller helped found Trend Union with Lee Edelcourt 20 some odd years ago, 30 years ago. They're very close friends. But understanding antique swatches and documents and how they become repetitive, and understanding and maintaining that library, you know, is critical. And, you know, never thinking. The most expensive swatch I ever sold was from the Palace of Versailles, and just touching it and, you know, using your gloves. And it's just, when you're presenting it and you're showing it, it's just the history and understanding the evolution of the fashion, the history of fashion, and how the yarn dyes, stripes and plaids and the wovens, and they all come back together, and, you know, the different batiks, and, you know, taking the antique swatch and document collections and really, you know, documenting them. And there are certain customers that love it. Now, there are also some people that they don't care for it. It's not what they're in. It depends on the pattern. You know your market. I couldn't always sell an antique swatch and document to certain people. They wanted that original artwork, and understanding what type of artwork they're looking for. And Harry, I didn't get to meet you, but I understand, you know, like you're an artist, you know, understanding your market, it all comes to play. But it's those textiles and you know, Karen Muller, it's historical and it just repeats itself. So really having a good basis of it is great to have under your belt.
So a little bit more, Giovanni, about the trend resources that are bi-directional.
Oh, definitely. Let me take a second to make sure I'm on the correct slide. Well, one thing I liked, as kind of Rory was saying when she was really talking about that vintage cutting from the side, one of the reasons why we do, and and when I guess I'm talking about some maybe like the bigger fashion companies or the larger companies use trend forecasting sites, is they are very inspiring. And that's one advantage of going to kind of like trade shows like Premiere Vision, is like you do get very inspired there. Because like in a way you could actually, technically when you're scrolling your Instagram as a designer, you're doing trend research, whether you think about it or not, because that's one of the main places designers knock each other off from, to be transparent. But when you use these kind of like when you're using more of these like professional trend forecasting companies, it's extremely curated, it's very inspiring. But once again, I mean, we discussed that students can go to these shows for free, but even if you're early in your career and you're no longer a student, you can do first-hand research, once again, by your specific categories. So, for example, high-end designers are often kind of at the forefront, and it often takes a while for those trends to kind of reach all segments of the market, kind of like seen wears product, which is actually pretty accurate about like the shade of blue. So, if you're a more mass market designer, you might not necessarily need to be like 3 years in advance. You could potentially be looking at what's on a high-end catwalk for this spring, and that could be your next spring, because it does hit certain markets and segment of the populations later. For example, things like menswear, it's trending and changing more quickly than in the past, but it's still a lot slower than women's wear. And then trends do go across multiple seasons, once again by category. So the crop tops, very popular at Urban Outfitters probably like last summer, hitting maybe like the millennial, my age demographic more this and next summer. So there's all these, like this is all trend research, kind of like just keeping your eyes open.
Giovanni, I can piggyback right off of that because it's about that trend research. I worked with Fran, who is a creative director for Design Options. I remember 25 years ago when I was the first person who sold her forecasting service. There are some images here that talk about how, I remember using the hot glue gun to paste her Pantone swatches. She had to get the license from Pantone in order to get her inspiration out. So, you might be that creative thinker and you're looking for that window of opportunity, using that digital marketing, the technology that we have today. Look at how the company has evolved. 25 years ago, we were selling just a piece of paper with some Pantone swatches, a great inspiration, and a blurb. And now she is
just one for this year, for this season. I mean, look at the difference. I was like, you know what? Let me put it side by side because it's crazy, the difference, right? So
and how it's evolved.
Yeah,
how it's evolved, and it's about the color and the trend and the feel and the market that you're trying to touch, and how the hues really make a difference. And I wish I would have thought of that, but I love supporting her, and I'm so proud of the work that she's done over the past 25 years with the company and forecasting color.
And I see so many of you that are on the screen right now that have been in our textile class and have been in our color theory class and our elements and principles of fashion. This is what we're doing. We're creating these mood boards, and this is the pattern. This is your pattern that you're going to use and utilize over and over again in the industry as you move forward with your career. So let's really dive in. We only have a few minutes. I know Giovanni has to go. Do you want to just talk about the home comfort trend and what you're seeing for 2021?
Definitely. Yes, I do unfortunately have to go. Thank you though for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time.
So there's kind of a bit of two perspectives on the home comfort trend. Well, once again, we talked about macro trends. So something like athleisure and increased comfort is a macro trend. So that's not going to necessarily disappear. You know, jeans used to be what you wore, you know, to like fix the shed. Now they're what you wear on a date. And now some people can't even be bothered to wear them for a date because they want to be in sweatpants.
No, because COVID-19 has put the 19, so you got to wear stretch. Hello.
Yes.
Exactly. So that trend's still going to continue, but I know at least for Madewell on our end, and this could change depending on how the COVID numbers break, but we all are chasing into kind of like trying to get to deliver as quickly as possible to market some styles that are a bit more dressy, that have a bit more menswear, because myself included, some people are starting to be back in the office in September because of the vaccine. So that leisure trend is going to continue, but dresses aren't disappearing anyway. Thank God.
Yeah. But how is it moving into this comfort trend? How is it? So it's not necessarily athleisure's still going to be there. It's still going to continue, but this comfort trend, I think, is more around the textile itself and the tactility, basically, of the fabrication.
A lot softer fabrications, definitely a lot of texture. These types of styles tend to sell a little bit better in store. You don't often really see their beauty online, so that's one thing to keep in mind as a designer. Often things with like a bit of a more worn feel or a more rustic feel. And also a lot of these things do kind of become more popular whenever we're going into fall and winter every season. Some things do kind of repeat in a slightly different way.
Yeah, definitely a classic, I would say. So why do you think, you know, for me, Rory, from your take on it in the sales aspect, like what consumer preference right now, what's changing? Is it the pandemic that was, you know, just because we're over it doesn't mean it's over with? Like, what's happening?
It's not just, I mean, the pandemic was the topper. It was the icing on the cake of the evolution of the big box retailer, and how we shop. And, you know, lately malls are decreasing and lifestyle centers have been opening. So I don't know if anyone here follows, you know, the retail segment, but it's about the lifestyle center where it's smaller specialty, or, you know, you'll see an outdoor center now that has wonderful restaurants, and you'll have an Apple store, and maybe one or two big designers. You'll have a Williams Sonoma, and then it's all about the family experience. So retail is changing and evolving. So understanding that, and that was happening before the pandemic.
Accelerated it, basically.
Retail just jumped on it and said, well, let's change now. And that's what most retailers are doing out there today.
And I think it's relevant to look at, if they're not changing, they're either changing or they're gone, because there's really no in between right now, because the priorities have shifted, and maybe it's due to the pandemic. Maybe it's probably a little bit of both, but people want their garments to be adaptable, to last longer, to be able to, you know, sit and have a meeting and then run and pick up the kids from school. Like, they just want more from their garment. And one of the things that I've been talking about in our color class is that right now, signature color and signature styles is more important, because we're seeing it evolve in the seasons. As the seasons roll out, we see those same colors, but maybe changing the shades slightly, because we want more out of our garment, and the consumer preferences are dictating it. They're saying that they want better stuff that lasts longer. And maybe
absolutely,
people, like I would definitely say, even shopping vintage, it's a huge trend. Gen Z really wants their money, you know, spent correctly.
It's sustainability.
Yeah.
Gen Z doesn't want their clothing sitting in a landfill. Gen Z, it's a different industry.
And thank God, because it's changing what we're seeing. And so So what are you seeing for the colors for 2021, 2022? We still have people coming in. It's kind of cool. I'm sorry, we're running a little bit over. If you have any questions that you really want answered, please put them in the chat. We're definitely going to answer them in the order they were received. So you want to talk a little bit just about our colors for this season?
It's just that rich tone that's gonna, embrace, that comfort. It's warm, and just that feeling, that you just want to indulge in luxury. It's the fabric. It's that velvet. It's the soft. It's the brushed cotton. It's something that's it's that tactile feel that you'll have, and the color that's really inspired.
The colors have either these really saturated richness or this very natural, and it's the two biggest trends that I'm seeing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like either the outdoor protective type of space, and then also this home feel good type of space. And you see look at it next to one another, that here is this natural tonality, right? In the greens.
It's flow. It's the flow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So as we move into more, the outdoor space and this uptick in, people wanting to get outside, we were trapped for like a year and a half. And finally, with vaccinations rising, we're able to get out, we're able to do more in-person things, but there's definitely this uptick in the clothing. And again, I see the safety feature. And when you look at these different things, it's almost like caution, and the plastic covering. And, these are some of the things, that I'm seeing. And I know, Rory, you talked a lot about the medical and the PPE and how
it's critical to understand that. And, if you've got that little window, that niche of opportunity, now is your time. Get in.
Yeah. And really understanding the different aspects of fabrics. And it's no longer, I want a performance fabric. Right now, again, if we go back a few slides and we say, everybody is interested in getting more from their money, they want performance features already built into your garments. So think about it, people, regardless of whether you're doing athleisure or specialty apparel, it's almost that crossover that we're seeing. And back to sustainability, as you were talking about, Rory, and ethical sourcing. I think, it's super important now for us to be transparent with what we're doing and where we're sourcing our fabrics from.
Yeah, sourcing is critical in understanding where to go and where they're printing and how they're doing it or how they're manufacturing it. When I was, one of the classes for the study abroad that I was doing was partnered with the Florence University of the Arts. And when you go, even for the feathers, you don't understand. I'm looking at the cotton and the feathers and how is it made and where are they getting it from? And cost, because Giovanni said it earlier, its bottom line is what's the cost to make it happen. So, studying that, getting the basics in school while, and just understanding that. And then when you find that niche, you've got the background and then you could become that content expert in certain things.
Yeah. And costs really spread from monetary to people. And we have to think, when we think sustainability, we have to also think sustainability with the people that are creating these garments and how we're sourcing them and who's making them and are they having a fair wage, and all of these things that, we really try to touch on in our sustainability class. It's super important. It's very relevant. And we'll just notice how these trends, right? Even these trends of like the comfort, they're actually, and the sustainability and the ethical practices are actually crossing into the patterns that we're seeing, because like we saw in the slide before, the cotton, it has this embroidery, right? This almost custom made feel that we're trending towards, and painterly feel, right? Like that's why I keep thinking of you, Howard.
Yes.
So this is how we incorporate it into the fabrication that's right now, and it's happening, and it's on the runway, and that we're seeing over and over again. So, I think that we should end it with the seasonless. And just like Giovanni had said, I think that it's so perfect. This bi-directional understanding, it's happening across all platforms, it's happening across all genders, it's genderless, it's seasonless, it's colors that are going to last longer. It's this bi-directional fabrication that is giving and receiving, both ethically and humanely and financially and protective wise. This is where we're going. This is the direction that we're in. And as designers, emerging designers, this is what we need to really focus on. And, I see a lot of layering happening because it's like this trans-seasonal that could be worn anytime, and layering. And maybe it has to do with the sustainability and and maybe the ozone, and the climate change. And so we're going into this seasonless, fashion. And I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add about that, Rory. I know we're keeping everybody a little bit late, and thank you so much for staying on.
Basically, you said everything I would have said. It's about that, neutral, maybe a pop of color here and there, but it's about, we don't want our clothing these days winding up in a landfill. So how are we going to do it? And, as you're going through your different courses in school, whether it's color theory or textiles, you've got so many opportunities to learn from, and just get the foundation. Because be true to yourself as we start to end, the workshop today. Be true to yourself. Know your strengths. Focus on them. Build on them. Everyone has opportunities. Know what they are. Identify them, and use your peers. Use your mentors. Use people to help you develop your strengths, your opportunities, so that they do become strengths. But don't focus on them. Sell yourself, marketing. It's about attention to detail to you and your brand. And whether it's textile design or selling or merchandising or fabrications, there's endless. And you could become a blogger and make your career. Be happy and true to yourself in today's day and age. Business is there, freelancing is there, corporate is there, licensing is there. There's so many windows of opportunity in fashion and textiles, and sourcing and distribution, from manufacturers to designers, converters, you name it. And the limit is yours. And I'm really proud of the next generation of fashion students at school.
Thank you so much, Rory. I see Alpaza said timeless and ageless. Yes, it's genderless, it's timeless, it's ageless. That is absolutely seasonless. That's the direction that we're going in. Absolutely. And yes, we will have a recording of this entire session. And Nisa, thank you for sharing that jam file. Is there anybody, thank you so much to Giovanni. I know that we went over textile magazines. Again, Alpaza, the best sources would be WWD, Business of Fashion, CFDA. All of you guys have access to that stuff. So please, start using those references. And on a daily, CFDA they're constantly having things for young designers. They're constantly showing the trends that are happening. And yes, you can get in free for Surtex. I see that is in the chat.
Yeah.
I promise you guys that right now I will send. Rory made a huge list for us. Thank you so much, Rory. That list is like thorough and it's legit. So I'm going to send everybody that was in this meeting and anybody that couldn't make it to the meeting, I will send you that full list. I will send you the recording. If you have a specific recording, please let me know. So Osvaldo has said seasonless is best. Caribbean people do not have to change between seasons. Yes, not everybody is that lucky, but the beauty of it is with these new textiles and new fabrications, like olefin and tencel. It has this drape. It has this lightness. It also is sustainable. I mean, there's so many great things about it. We're making fabric from eucalyptus plants, you know, and then we can layer it. So it could either keep us warm or it'll keep us cool, and it'll wick our sweat off of us. I mean, with where we've gone, you know, in a matter of 20 years, I could see like my, you know, 20 years ago in 2003, I graduated, and I see the difference now of how textiles have changed, and it's just unbelievable, and it's really exciting where we're going. In the tropic, we don't have winter. Yes, lucky ducks. Thank you guys so much.
I know bamboo. We could make fabric from bamboo. I don't know about pineapple.
Yes, pineapple is huge right now, and you can make pineapple leather. Harry, didn't we talk about this with one of the students in maybe Elements? Pineapple leather from pineapple like fibers. You could actually make it.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, this is what we could be doing. So guys, we have a new section starting September 20th for the foundations. If you haven't taken it, please take the foundations. Even if you have some design experience, I always suggest the foundational program, because it gives you just that, your foundations, everything you need to either start your own business, really decide what you want to delve into and what you want to focus in on fashion. And now you can take the courses a la carte. So if you're just interested in textiles, if you're just interested in color theory, if you're just interested in entrepreneurial, please let us know. Any questions, feel free to email us. You have Dominique's email, my email, info@nysd.edu, and I will send you all this recording. Thank you, Rory. Thank you for everything, for all of your preparation.
Thank you, Ho. Thank you so much.
Best of luck.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for your time. I hope to see you all soon.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.